Hi guys, so our last of these videos for the orientation is going to talk about your paper assignment. And remember that you have two due dates, actually it's going to be three due dates that we talk about here. The first due date is June 27th. You need to have found and shared with me a peer-reviewed article that meets the criteria we're going to talk about. The paper itself is due on July 11th, and then you do have an option to revise the paper for a new grade if you'd like to improve your grade. That revision has to be to me by the 25th of July. So keep those dates in mind. So the first thing you need to do is find a psychology-related article from a peer-reviewed journal, and that LibGuide that I showed you is on the syllabus. The link is on the syllabus. Is a great place to learn how to use our electronic databases to do this if you don't already know how. I'm also really happy to help any of you that need help doing that if you've already gone through the library help and still have questions. In addition, our librarians are available for online chats during regular business hours. They're also available to set up virtual and live appointments if you want to do that. So all of that is available to you, so you shouldn't feel like you have to figure that out yourself. You need to find an article that it has to be a research study in which the authors collected data from human subjects. So just because it's a peer-reviewed article doesn't mean it's going to meet those criteria. It has to have a method section. So if you look through the article, there should be a section of it where it says methods, and they tell you we studied 150 people, and this is the kind of people they were, and this is how we collected data from them. We gave them surveys, we did observations, whatever they did. And so you need to make sure you have that. There are peer-reviewed articles that summarize many other articles, like they're called meta-analysis or literature review articles. You don't want those. It has to be, one group of people where they collected data and they're telling you all of the details about that and what they found. You also cannot use a case study designed for this. It won't work well for the paper. So if they only studied a single individual and that's what they did, that is not the paper for this assignment. So you're going to find your paper. You're going to read it. Probably going to read it several times. For many of you, I imagine this might be the first time you're needing to read and report out and respond to a peer-reviewed article. And if that's the case, it might feel foreign and a little odd to read through it. So you're going to read that several times, make notes while you read, and then you're going to put it aside. If you keep the article in front of you while you write, I guarantee you will get comments from me telling you that your writing is far too close to the individual sentences of the article. This needs to be, the paper needs to be in your own words. You're not going to use any quotes. You're not going to quote the article in any way. You're not going to paraphrase closely what they said. You're going to describe in your own words for me the research that they did. And it's really hard to do that if you have the article in front of you while you're writing. So you're going to put it aside, hopefully, and just use your notes to do this. And then you are going to write a relatively short paper. The paper is probably going to be 2 to 3 pages total length. It certainly does not need to be more than 3 pages. And I would argue that most of these should be 2 or fewer. So this could be 1.5 to 2 pages would kind of be the sweet spot for doing what you need to do here. So not a long paper. A lot of your time is going to be spent in learning to find the article and reading the article and making sense of the article. And so, so the first 3/4 to 1 page is you summarizing the peer-reviewed article that you found. And while you're not going to do this in bullets, I have given you a bulleted list of what you need to cover. You need to tell me what did they want to find out or what their research question was. How did they go about studying that question? And there you need to tell me like how they collected their data, who did they study, right? So the how did they study it is, what methods did they use, who did they study? Both of those things have to be included in there. And then you need to be able to explain to me what they found, what were their results. You don't need to tell me statistically what their results were. I don't want to know that from you, and I don't expect you to be able to do that, but I do want you to be able to describe to me what their conclusions were, what they were able to conclude from their data. And so I'm going to be looking to see how well you understood the article and how good also you are at communicating your understanding. Writing style and the ability to write clearly is part of that. If I cannot understand what you're trying to say, then that is going to hurt your grade. And so you will get lots of feedback from me about this, and that is why you have the option to rewrite. So for those of you for whom this might be a new task, I would plan to put on your calendar that you're planning to rewrite this, that you're going to, you'll get a grade on the first version you hand in, but essentially you'll treat that as a first try. And then you'll get comments back and use those comments to try again and improve. If this is something you've done before, then maybe you only need to write it once and it comes out the way you need it to the first time. The second part of the paper, also about a page or so, is your critical response to the article. And in my mind, this is the more important part of the paper, and because it requires more from you in some ways. Sometimes people just want to summarize it and then not give me the second half. You can't get a passing grade on this paper without writing both halves, so make sure you plan to do that. This critical response has to include a critique of their research methods, and by the time we finish chapter 1, you'll be well equipped to do that. So you might think about how they collected their data, you might think about who they used as their research sample, who their participants were, and critique doesn't mean saying they did anything wrong. You can be telling me you think they did a really good job, you just need to be able to explain in either case why you're saying that, why you're saying that they should have done something differently, or why it wasn't so great, or why it was wonderful. And so just make sure that you can explain that fully to me. You also need to include at least one specific idea for future research on a new research question that is related in some way to the topic you read about, but that is a brand new research question. So you might write in that first part when you're critiquing, tell me that they should have included more women in their sample, that it was a lopsided sample in terms of gender, and that's great. But the idea for future research has to go beyond tweaking or improving their methods. It has to be on a new question that you're curious about related to the topic. And again, there's no wrong answers here. There's not just one right answer. I'm looking for you to demonstrate that you're thinking about the topics we've covered and that you can start thinking about psychological research. And so if we look down here, obviously you can read much of this on your own. You also need to use APA style. I need an APA style cover sheet, APA style headings. So you'll have 2 section headings, something like a summary and a response, and then an APA style reference page or works cited page with just the one citation for the one article that you read. And again, that LibGuide that is linked on the first page of your syllabus, there's information there on how to use APA style, so you can rely on that. And so I need, when you submit this to me, I need the whole article. I know you'll have submitted that to me on June 27th, and then I'll have it in that other Dropbox. But when you submit the paper, you also need to submit the whole article so I can go back and forth between them easily to see how well you're summarizing and understanding the article. And so make sure you do that. You should have 2 attachments to your submission, the article and your paper. And when you're using the electronic databases in the library, for almost every article on the left-hand side, when you're looking at the article, there is a button to download full text PDF. You want to download that copy to your computer so that you can then attach it to the Dropbox. All right, and so you can see how the grading works. You get 70 points for the summary and 70 points for the critical response. You can see how that breaks down in terms of the different things that you do in those 2 sections, and you get additional 10 points for using APA style correctly, and then you also get 10 points for giving me the article for my approval by June 27th. Okay, so where are we? We'll come back here. There is a Dropbox for the paper assignment. There's another Dropbox for the paper itself. And both of those are due, and then there's a Dropbox for, there's not a separate Dropbox for the redo that you could do by the 25th. If you're redoing it, you're just going to submit it back to the original Dropbox so that the new grade replaces the old grade in My Grades. Okay. Obviously, if you have questions, that the practical questions place is a great place to post those, because questions about the paper are likely to not just be your questions, but other people may have them too. So then if you post it there rather than emailing me, everyone can benefit from the answer that I give you. So hopefully these 3 videos help you kind of get set up for the course, and I will see you on June 7th.